Okay. So, Bryson, big day coming up in a couple of weeks. Just how excited are you about it? I know that you made your commitment a long time ago, but now that signing day is actually here, how excited are you to go ahead and put your name on that paper?
I'm very excited. It's been getting crazy around here with schools trying to make last minute push. I'm just thankful for the opportunity, to be able to go to a Division I school. So I'm ready to sign those papers.
I mean, you mentioned the other schools making pushes. Is it, tough to stay focused on South Carolina and on everything else, your schoolwork and everything else, just with all these guys calling you all the time?
It's tough. It's tough, but, to whom much is given, much is required. So, with all those schools coming in, I still got to stay focused, still got to remain humble and, take things one day at a time, pray. And, I got a good support system around me, so it's easy. It's easy to stay focused.
Who was your main recruiter at South Carolina?
Coach Ward.
Okay. Know that, Coach Ward loves to kind of comb this area around Atlanta for talent. How many of the other guys from around this area that have gone to South Carolina do you know? I mean, do you know Mike Davis and some of those
I
guys?
know Mike Davis, Kyle Fleetwood, Sherrod Golightly. Those just a few. Chaz Elder, a lot of those guys, they tell me, South Carolina's a great place to be. So, I'm excited to be up there.
Just with that, Bryson, I mean, did they, talk to you during your recruitment before you decided and say, hey, come on up and join with us and keep the Atlanta tradition going?
I got a chance to talk to Mike last year before, when I went to the Georgia game.
Sure.
He told me it was going to be a fun experience. I had the time of my life. First time seeing the stands on person. And, I started coming back a little bit more for junior days and stuff. And when April came around, it was easy for me to pull the trigger.
Sure. You look at it now, obviously Coach Ward is still kind of combing this area for recruits. Some guys like DJ Smith just committed. Right. Wesley still making up his mind. How often do you talk to those guys and say, hey, come on with me down to South Carolina?
I talk to those guys a lot. Those guys are, all close friends no matter with Wesley. No matter where you go, he's going to always be my close friend.
I know Wesley's got a big decision to make. Of course, he's saying it's between South Carolina and Georgia. How often do you talk to him and say, man, you don't need to worry about Georgia?
Probably about twice or three times a week. Wesley, me and him are good friends. So.
Just looking at next year, Bryson, when do you plan to come in and, what have they told you about your chance to play right away?
Well, I'm going to be in the first session, June 1. And they tell me if I come in, I'm able to learn the playbook, and I'm going to start on special teams. That's
sure.
where I already talked to Coach Joe Rob, but I come in, learn the system. I got an opportunity to rotate or even take the starting spot. So.
How exciting is it that they will be playing Georgia every year? I'm sure you know a lot of guys on that team, and it'll be coming up to, I guess, the second game of the season.
That's going to be exciting. Also, I'm able to come back home, play. Well, actually, Georgia has to come up to us next year,
sure.
So get a chance to avenge that that loss last year. So, it's always fun to play. It's always fun to play guys that you know.
Bryson, you've been kind of one of the guys that committed early, and obviously you don't have to do it, but you've kind of taken it upon yourself to talk to other kids and get them to recruit as well. Is that something that you're proud of doing? That you considered it maybe kind of your duty to go ahead and do?
It's kind of funny because, I told myself before I committed, whatever school I was going to go to, I was going to help recruit. And South Carolina just was easy to recruit kids to come to because, it's a SEC powerhouse. They're on the rise. Finished number 4 in the country this year. So guys are starting to see that South Carolina is a spot to be number 2 SEC school in the country. So.
You look at South Carolina, they've obviously had 3 very, very strong years. What do you think that you can bring to help them maybe get over that hump and get to the SEC championship?
Well, just talking to the coaches, last year they said they really didn't have an emotional leader. And, that's one of the things that I feel like I'm more of a vocal player. I can go show, I can show it on the field, but, I'm also vocal about, being a leader. And, that's something that every team needs. Every team needs a vocal leader. And, next year, I'm hopefully going to be able to, be that vocal leader for the team.
Do you have any fear about going in as a true freshman and trying to be that vocal leader in the clubhouse? Do you think there might be a few seniors who say, hey, hold on a second, we got this?
Well, as long as I'm making plays, guys are going to respect you. So, before I go in and try to be a vocal leader, I got to make plays first.
You look at Coach Spurrier. He is getting on. He's 68, but he seems to be getting younger. Just how exciting does that make you, knowing that you'll get to play for him for probably your entire college career?
Coach Spurrier is a great guy. He actually came in here yesterday and talked to me.
Right.
He's like I said, he's a great guy. He is young as he was when he first started South Carolina. So he just has a great personality. And I just like playing for him. I'm gonna love playing for him. So.
He's busy yesterday. What'd you two talk about?
We just talked about lifting weights and stuff. He asked me, have I been working out? You tell I'm getting bigger and stuff. So he just said that he can't wait for me to get on campus. He said they're gonna be through in the next couple of years. Get my little brother. So.
Your little brother, he's coming up obviously in a couple of years. Where do you see him maybe fitting in, and have you already started to talk to him about maybe coming to USC?
Yeah, I've already started talking to him. I think he has like a little top group right now of Auburn, South Carolina, and Georgia. Mm-hmm. He's young. So I really let him. I'm really let him go on his own right now. Yeah. Feel himself out. But I think it's a good chance that we get him in a couple of years because South Carolina known for D tackles also. Sure. That's what he plays. So.
USC didn't lose a lot of players from the past year, but they did lose a lot of key guys: Clowney, Shaw, Vic Hampton, Kelsey Quarles. How do you think that you can come in and kind of help smooth over the holes left by those guys?
Like I said, with Connor, he was a vocal leader on offense. Clowney was a playmaker, and that's like I said, that's one thing that I think I've been able to do in my high school career, that I feel like I'm gonna be able to hopefully transition into college as being an instant impact on the field. Every game I'm just gonna try, do my job, and plays just come to you when you do your job.
Bryson, I know that a few people maybe got a little antsy when you said, well, I'm going to go ahead and take my other visit to Alabama. No biggie, I'm still committed and all that. And then your mom, had a few messages and everything. Anything else you want to say to USC Nation about, hey, nothing to worry about?
There's nothing to worry about. I only got this chance, one time.
Right.
I'm only going to be a recruit once, so, I got to be able to go out and take my visits. And, Coach Ward is cool about it. Coach Spurrier knows I'm taking visits. But on signing day, I will sign South Carolina.
Sure. You look at it, Bryson, any of the other guys in the recruiting class, have you already started to talk to them, make friends with them?
Yeah, mostly I think out of all the guys that we got committed right now, I help recruit about 7 or 8 of them. So, I know most of the guys on the team, coming in next year.
So it's, I guess when they start handing out that recruiter of the year, you're going to put your name in for it.